On the 7th of July, a 23-year-old Wisconsin man walked into the Northeast Precinct to file a missing persons report. Chandler Halderson had not seen his parents, Bart 50 and Krista 53, since they left for a weekend 4th of July trip with friends. Bart Halderson worked from home as an accountant, and Krista worked as a customer service rep for a local car company. The couple lived in a beautiful home overlooking a lake in a quiet suburb in Deforest, Windsor. They owned a cabin in Langlade County and enjoyed nothing more than spending time there. The cabin had been in their family for years. The couple had 2 adult sons, Chandler and Mitchell. Even in adulthood, Krista was never out of touch with her sons for very long. When Krista had failed to turn up for work on Friday the 2nd of July, colleagues became concerned. This was completely out of character for Krista, who was an exemplary employee. It was so out of character that one of Krista's fellow work companions and friend drove to her home in Deforest to check on her welfare. Here, they would speak to Chandler, who would tell them that his parents had left early in the morning with some friends for some type of emergency up at their cabin. 3 days later, Chandler finally receives a text message from Krista. The poor cell reception up at the cabin had meant she couldn't get through, but she was fine, and they were going to the White Lake 4th of July parade later that day. They would be back home Tuesday by the latest. When they failed to arrive home on Tuesday, Chandler became concerned and went to report them missing. As police began to canvass the Haldersons' neighbourhood, a sinister plot would slowly unfold. This is the trial of Chandler Halderson. 23-year-old Chandler, the youngest son of Bart and Krista, was raised in a loving family home. He was popular at high school, was an Eagle Scout, and a member of the school swim team. After graduating high school, Chandler was studying renewable energy at Madison Area Technical College. He was in his final year of his degree program. He was in a serious relationship with Madison resident Kat Melinder and working for American Insurance. In between his busy life, Chandler would find time to play online games with his friends and his brother Mitchell, who had left the family home and lived nearby with his fiancée. Kat would come round to the Halderson home and enjoyed spending time with Krista and Bart and their 2 dogs. Kat's mother lived with her partner on a farm in Dane County, and Kat herself had her own apartment and a job in healthcare. Chandler's life was going well. In fact, so well, he'd been offered a job at Elon Musk's SpaceX, based in Florida. It would mean that Chandler would have to leave his home in Wisconsin, but this was a dream opportunity, and Kat was fully on board with leaving her own family and job and relocating with him. But was everything as peachy as it seemed? Far from it. See, Chandler had a major problem. Well, several problems that he had created. It seems that Chandler was not working for American Insurance. He didn't receive the amazing SpaceX job, and he wasn't even attending college. He'd dropped all his classes. He didn't even have any money. His girlfriend Kat was picking up the tab for him. Chandler had woven a complete web of lies. To explain away his lack of wages from his job, he claimed they'd made a payroll mistake with his earnings and everything would be sorted soon. As college classes were transitioned to online learning at the peak of the pandemic, no one grew suspicious about his attendance, or so it would seem. The only true events happening in Chandler's life was his affinity for playing online games. When he professed to be busy in his room working, he was just immersed in his online gaming world, so much so that he made friends with an American soldier based in Germany. Because there were so little people online in the daytime and the European time difference meant he had a buddy to game with. It's not really clear why or when Chandler began to build this extraordinary portfolio of lies. Bart had gained his accountancy degree in college and provided a comfortable standard of living for his family. Krista had been a stay-at-home mum until Chandler began college. Chandler had no reason to create a fantasy life. Kat was happy with him and happy to support him, and his parents did too. No doubt Bart and Krista had expectations of Chandler to succeed in life, but they were not aggressive, pushy parents. This made their disappearance even more concerning. Krista doted on Chandler and Mitchell. Back to the 7th of July 2021. Officers come and visit Chandler at the family home. No one has seen or heard from Krista and Bart since the 1st of July, apart from one text to Chandler.
When was the last time you talked to your brother, Bart?
It would have been the morning of July 1st.
Is there any reason you remember that date?
Because that's my birthday.
Their friend circle even began to grow concerned. Who was the mystery couple they left to go to the cabin with? Krista's best friend even drove up to the cabin, but the place was locked up with no sign of anyone having been there. Chandler lets the officers search the house for any clues that could explain where they had gone. Their cell phones are gone, and Chandler leads the police to the garage and points to an empty shelf. He explains the storage tub is missing. He'd helped his parents pack some tools for the trip. They'd packed up some alcohol and a large sum of cash to take with them. To police officers, this sounds reasonable, but friends of the Haldersons know that Bart was an accountant. He was extremely sensible with money, and both Bart and Krista were not big drinkers. The officers canvass the neighbours, looking for any clues, and they collect the CCTV data from a few camera systems down the street. There is a sense of irony when the area you reside in is a well-populated with retired law enforcement, and for Chandler, he had a retired detective across the street keeping a watchful eye on his activity. Officers leave and the missing persons report is filed. Chandler goes to Krista's friends, who lives nearby.
So Chandler was actually trying to be very assuring that that they had taken a large roll of cash. They wanted to blow off some steam. They were going to go gamble. That they had taken a tote of booze with gin and tequila in it, which were not, as I mentioned, alcohols. I was aware of them drinking. And that they drove with another couple. So those things just...
One and one were not equaling
No,
two.
that it wasn't the people I knew.
They brainstorm and try to figure an action plan on what to do. At this point, Halderson's friends are considering that they were maybe in a car wreck somewhere. I mean, what else could explain their sudden disappearance? They suggest Chandler canvass the neighbours and see if they've seen anything that could identify the mystery couple that collected Krista and Bart. This is pretty much the only thing Chandler has proactively done since his parents disappeared. No flyers, no Facebook campaign, and no attempts to call friends or check hospitals. News crews hear about the missing person report and interview Chandler, although he refuses to be shown on camera. Amongst all this chaos, one good thing had happened. It seemed Chandler's health had vastly improved. This was one more act of deceit Chandler had created. The previous month, Chandler's brother Mitchell had gone to his doctors for a routine checkup. After blood work was done, Mitchell ended up in the hospital. He was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. This was a shock to Krista and Bart. Krista rang her best friend in tears. She was so worried for her son. Mitchell recovered after receiving treatment, much to the relief of his family. However, just a week after this, Bart was working at home when he heard a loud thud. Rushing to see what it was, he'd find Chandler in a heap on the floor. They took him to the ER, where he was treated for a concussion and given a neck brace to wear for any neck pain. He received a full CT scan and was cleared of any injury. Chandler had fallen down the stairs and hit his head apparently, but this gained him the attention he so badly needed after Mitchell steaming the limelight. The accident had devastating consequences for Chandler. His memory was affected, his legs weren't working because of the non-existent nerve damage, and he had a brain bleed so bad that he'd need to have a hole drilled in his head. He would then wear the neck brace every day, soak up the sympathy like a sponge, and have everyone drive him around. Tragically, he would tell Kat that the SpaceX job is lost. He can't fly with his injuries being as serious as they are. In reality, had he actually sustained a serious head injury, then it could have changed the way this case went completely. Now, miraculously, since Krista and Bart disappeared, so did Chandler's need to wear his neck brace. But it seemed no one really noticed this, as we were all too concerned about the missing persons. July 8th rolls around and still nothing from the Haldersons. Mitchell makes the 3-hour drive up to the cabin to meet with Langdale police and investigate the cabin. Meanwhile, Chandler is watching out on his street and he sees more police cars in the area. He calls the detective handling his case to query this. Detective Shunk asks Chandler to come down to the police station along with his girlfriend Kat, just so they can get more information. This is where the house of cards falls for Chandler. After squirming through an hour-long interview with detectives, muddling his way through with vague answers to his activity over the past days, the bombshell is dropped.
It was just me and the girls till whenever Kat got there. We didn't eat together, I don't think. No, this is Sunday. So I went to Kat's house.
On Sunday.
So that was Sunday morning is when I left the girls. So all of Sunday morning, I had the girls in the fort. We watched New Girl. I went to Kat's house Sunday to eat, but we ended up not eating there. We went to Cress's house. What happened? Okay.
You know what happened. We're not going to tell you what happened. You know what happened. You were there when it happened. We're not BSing you, okay?
I wasn't there when it happened.
We know more than you think we know.
I understand. But
There's people that have told us things. We have evidence. We have proof. We have more has happened about that. So your parents never made it to the cabin, and I think you know that.
Whilst Chandler was watching the police cars roll up outside his house, detectives had been following up on Chandler's actions. He had paid a visit to Kat's mother's partner's farm on Monday, the 5th of July. Now, visiting the farm was not unusual when he was with Kat, but this day he'd arrived alone in the late afternoon. He'd asked if he could use that outdoor pool located in a field at the back of the property. He'd wanted to talk to Kat's mother's partner, Chris, about how low he was feeling about his health issues and asked if he could use their pool to help with his leg pains. Chris obliged. Around about 1 hour and a half later, Chris and Kat's mother rode down to the pool and were surprised to find the pool cover still on and Chandler's vehicle parked up near a shed with the boot open. They got into the pool as it was a scorching day. Then Chandler emerged from the wooded area near the shed. He seemed to duck out of sight, then approached the couple. Now, Chris had opted to get in the pool topless, and Kat's mother was a little upset that Chandler still decided to get in the pool with them, and then appeared to wash himself down with the pool water. They conversed, but there was some tension due to the awkwardness of the situation. It wouldn't take long for detectives to go and look around where Chandler had been seen on the farm. They could clearly see where the brush had been disturbed. This is the 8th of July. As they search the undergrowth, they come across the most horrific sight. There, hidden in the undergrowth, lay a man's torso. A rope crudely tied around the waist, a missing head and limbs. This scene was akin to a horror movie. While Chandler bumbled his way through an interview, the detectives knew they were dealing with a very sinister individual. At the same time, detectives are interviewing his girlfriend, Kat. At this time, they don't know if she was involved, but it would soon become clear she was oblivious to how her body ended up on the farm. In fact, Kat's cell phone would become crucial in tracing Chandler's steps, thanks to location data from Snapchat, and Kat taking a screenshot of Chandler's location because she was very curious why he was on parkland. It had become very clear that Bart and Krista were not missing, but they were murdered, and the person responsible was their own son. Chandler is arrested. He's arrested for providing a false missing persons report. Even though circumstantial evidence points to murder, the law is tricky. It's worth pointing out that Chandler asked for a lawyer, and therefore the interview is concluded. But Chandler told the detectives he wanted to tell them everything. He said he did not feel bad for what he'd done, but without a lawyer present, the detectives couldn't interview him further. Chandler did not speak to detectives after the fact, nor did he confess, and this led to him choosing to go to trial and a lot of work for the prosecution. On July the 1st, Bart Halderson's planner had an appointment scheduled at 2 p.m. with Chandler in regards to Chandler's status at Madison College. Chandler had created several fictitious email accounts, all posing to be staff from Madison College. So every time Bart would inquire about his son's progress, Chandler would send a fake email from an advisor, stalling appointments. He kept this up for months. That was until Bart had grown so suspicious that he'd called the college himself, pretending to be Chandler.
Hi, I'm trying to get an appointment scheduled to meet with somebody to mainly just get a copy of the transcript and also a printed copy of a certificate that was earned and other degree verification.
Okay.
How do I get that done?
Okay, for the degree, you have to download the duplicate diploma form and send it in with a check or a money order of $4 for the diploma to be mailed back to you. For the transcript, you have to go online and request it.
Yeah, I tried requesting them online and we never got them. And I've spent I don't know how many times doing that at $8 a piece, so I'm not willing to do that again.
Why is not letting you request your transcript? Okay, so it looks like you owe a balance. You owe a balance of $2,349. So that's why you can't request it. You said,
where does that get requested through?
If you earned a certificate?
Yeah.
I don't see that you earned a certificate. There were no like. You were taking.
Oh, okay.
You were taking IT classes, right? I don't see that you were in a program.
Well, prior to the IT, there was a solar program too.
Yeah, but I don't see that you were Chandler Anderson. And your date of birth is March 15, 98?
98.
Okay.
Do you have an Alyssa Brandt that works in that area or anywhere in the campus?
What is the last name?
B-R-A-N, I think it's T or D-T.
You said the first name is Alyssa?
Alyssa? Yeah, A-L-Y-S-S-A.
No. All the branch. There's no Alyssa with all the last name that I bet.
And does that check non-teachers and everything? It would be anybody on campus that works there?
There will be anybody on campus. The directory will have anybody on campus.
Okay. How about, does Daniel Spice still work there? His last name is Spice. Yeah, it's trying to get the proper spelling. No, Speith.
You said Speith. No, it's not so, no.
Chandler had not attended classes. It didn't take Bart long to realise the mess Chandler was in, so we can presume this was a contributing factor to the events that followed. Chandler is about to be busted for lying about college. The appointment doesn't give a location, but Bart's activity tracking on his Apple Health app ceases after 3 p.m. on the 1st of July. Krista receives this message from Chandler while she is at work. She is captured on CCTV grabbing lunch from the store across from her workplace on the 1st of July. Her cell phone activity tracks her arriving home around 5:30 p.m. Krista is never seen again, nor is Bart. Bart's autopsy shows he is shot in the back twice. One bullet went straight through his spinal cord. Detectives find a bullet fragment and casing in the basement, but no gun is found. Investigators do find 2 gun magazines hidden in the wall cavity of the basement. 5 bullets are missing. The luminol tests tell their own story. A few drops of Krista's blood are found spattered on a safe in the basement. There are droplets around the fire. Luminol needs peroxide to activate, so the patterns show a cleanup has occurred. It's not difficult to assume that Chandler led his dad to the basement, then laid in wait for his mother to return, and she met the same fate. Ironically, he'd asked to stop and get soda on the way home. I guess murder is thirsty work for Chandler. And this is where it gets really gruesome. I actually wonder if Chandler has binge-watched Dexter for what he would do next. He would take Bart's handsaws, an axe and some hedge clippers and begin the grotesque task of dismembering his parents' bodies piece by piece. He would then light the wood-burning stove in July and burn the remains of his parents, including their heads. It would take the work of a forensic anthropologist to painstakingly sift through ash from the fire to locate over 230 bone fragments. The fire left the bones calcined, so they had no ability to extract any DNA. They were unable to confirm whose pieces they are. Most disturbing was the remains of the dental crown that melted to the fireplace. What drew officers to the fireplace was the strange story Chandler had told them to explain why a piece of glass from the fire had smashed. He'd said the dog had hit it whilst playing fetch with a ball, and he'd smashed any sudden glass whilst cleaning it up. His father was so enraged with Chandler over it that they did not speak to each other. The reality was the heat generated by the fire was so intense it smashed the glass and caused heat damage around the hearth. It's not mentioned in the trial, but I think Chandler may have used gas or lighter fuel as an accelerant. Chandler also had burns around his wrist, which he would later claim were from a firework on 4th of July, but clearly were from his burning activities. What wasn't mentioned in the trial was that Chandler had a greenish-yellow bruise on his arm and scratches on his shins that resembled those you'd get walking through brush. Neighbouring CTV would show the intense fire burning for hours on end on a hot summer evening. Chandler injuring his foot on glass was just deployed to explain his cleanup. He would ask Kat to purchase peroxide and to borrow her Swiffer mop to clean up his dripping foot blood, when in fact he was cleaning up a crime scene. Yet more lies. Once he'd burned most of the remains, he was left with Bart's torso, which he would bundle up in a tarp, then place in a plastic bin and take to the farm. He even took tow rope and tied it around the torso so he could drag it into the woods. He also dumped the blood-soaked saw blade and tools in an old barrel on the farm, along with a bag of blood-stained rags still in a carrier bag that had Kat's names on it from one of her store trips. This was on Monday, so he had the torso stored somewhere in the home all through the weekend, whilst Kat had stayed over with him. Krista's remains weren't so easy to locate. Sadly, all they ever found of her was a leg and a foot. Chandler had dumped her remains in a park where he used to go swimming with his friends. His cell phone data provided 2 potential deposition sites, the park and the Wisconsin River, but police divers knew it was an impossible task to locate remains in the river, devastating for the friends and family of Bart and Krista. Officers would then find a pair of shoes amongst a pile stored in the garage. Tucked in the shoe was both Bart and Krista's cell phone and driving licenses, carefully wrapped in foil, a hack supposed to block cell signals. Now, the detectives knew that Krista never sent the message from the cabin on the 4th of July. Not only did the parade Krista claimed to be going to had already taken place on the 3rd of July, but her cell records show from the 1st of July her phone never left the property. Whilst Chandler carefully disposed of his parents, he managed to keep up appearances with his girlfriend and family friends. He celebrated 4th of July by having dinner with Kat, her mother, and Cress at the farm, then watched fireworks with Krista's work colleague Dan. Then they went back to his and slept in his lounge on 2 sofas pushed together next to the fireplace where days earlier had burned his parents. They usually slept in the bedroom, and Kat thought it was strange, but Chandler insisted he needed to be nearer the bathroom because of his bad legs, when in reality he'd stashed the rest of the remains of his parents in the freezer and couldn't risk them being found. This is why investigators were initially suspicious of Kat, because she'd been in the house several times following the murders. She too had been fooled by Chandler. There was one more person in Chandler's world who would also fall under suspicion, and that would be his online gaming buddy, the American soldier, Andrew. Andrew had since left the army following a head injury and had moved back to Kansas. Chandler invited him to stay for a weekend in June, so he did, and along with him came a gift for Chandler. An SKS Narinka rifle, a rifle similar to the ones they used in their online gameplay. Andrew had decided to gift the gun to Chandler. He'd testified that he didn't like the way the gun fired and didn't want to keep it. He also said Chandler had hinted he'd like one. Andrew gave Chandler the gun, along with 2 magazines and 480 rounds of ammunition. Chandler said he would have to hide it from his parents. They did not keep weapons in the home. This does raise a startling question, as if Chandler was planning to murder his parents. When gifting the gun, Andrew had ensured to take a photo of the rifle serial number alongside Chandler's ID. In court, Andrew himself had questioned if Chandler had considered pinning the crime on him, being that it fit a profile of ex-army with a passion for guns. Andrew made sure to contact the detectives and provide full proof of his location being far away from the Halderson home when the murders occurred. It would take 3 months for detectives to locate this gun, the murder weapon. Chandler had hidden it in the shed at Cress's farm. The shed was so cluttered that it was completely missed on the first search. It was Cress herself who spotted it when sorting through the shed months later and called the police. When Kat testified, she claimed that Chandler had said Bart and Krista were unhappy about them spending time together. So when he dumped his father's tools on her land and bloody rags in a bag with Kat's name on it, was he creating a scenario where Kat could be the villain? Throughout his trial, every lie he told is disproven. He went to great lengths to keep the lies going. The fake email accounts. He even purchased a cheap cell phone so he could answer calls posing as college admin staff. An email Bart shared with Krista mentions how a college advisor sounded just like Chandler. Chandler's internet searches following the crime, and he even looked at the case of Peter Capuzza, who murdered and dismembered his own cousin before dumping her remains in the Wisconsin River, then tried to get a retrial on the basis that his defence was inefficient despite overwhelming evidence of Capuzza's guilt. The police were unable to retrieve search data from one of Chandler's iPhones, so there was a lack of data preceding the crime. The prosecution provided an outstanding case with no stone left unturned evidentiary, but left us wondering what Chandler's motive was. Did he have a blazing row with his father about college? Maybe. But Bart was shot twice in the back, which could mean he was either fleeing from his son or never saw it coming. Because no other parts were recovered, it's not even known how many shots he received. As with Krista, all could be determined was her limbs had been crudely removed with a saw blade post-mortem, and her actual cause of death was deemed homicide with unknown means. It's beyond comprehension to even think how a son could do this to his parents. I think for Chandler, murdering his parents and cleaning up the mess was, in his distorted perspective, the ultimate solution to his problems. He could live with his girlfriend and carry on the lies. The last major trial of this type was Joel Guy Jr. He hacked his parents up with the intent of getting their life insurance after they told him he had to become financially independent at the age of 27. He also pled not guilty, like Chandler, even when the proof of guilt was overwhelming. Chandler's defence team provided no witnesses and could not risk letting him take the stand. Remember, he told detectives he had committed the murders, then after seeing a lawyer, opted for a not guilty plea. I do wonder if he just wanted to have the limelight one more time. In the state of Wisconsin, the penalty for murder is life without the possibility of parole. Chandler Halderson will be sentenced in March for his heinous crimes.